All right. Welcome back to the Illini Audible podcast. I am your host, Saeed Bravo. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the pod. And we're back after a pretty big hiatus. Since the last time we did one of these was April. And I'm joined, as always, by my colleague, Zeno Joe. Zeno, how are you doing today on this fine evening?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a long summer, right? It's been a long off season, but
Yeah.
we're finally here, just days away from kickoff. So, yeah, here we are.
Yeah, and we're doing this podcast on the heels of what is supposed to be what fans expect to be a really exciting season for the Illini. It's certainly one of the most exciting seasons that, in terms of preseason hype, that Illinois has had in a long time. Like ranked preseason number 12 for the first time since 1990, the 1990s, like the pretty ridiculous amount of time. So we'll get into that as well. But obviously, we're doing this pod a little bit deep into like less than 2 weeks before kickoff against Western Illinois at Memorial Stadium, and we haven't done one of these. And I wish you could have gotten more of this content and this podcast throughout the course of the summer and the preseason. Unfortunately, it's been pretty busy guys. Zena, what have you been up to?
Yeah, well, I started a job, so I'm working as a local reporter in Champaign with ChambanaToday. Yeah, but it's been great. I'm a Champaign kid. I'm a townie, so it's been great to stay in town and work here. How about you?
It's awesome. Yeah. This summer I was not here, and I was not in Illinois, not in Champaign, not in Chicago, not the Chicagoland area. I was in Atlanta doing an internship at CNN Sports, so a lot of fun over there. I won't go into too much detail, but it was certainly a lot of fun to go ahead and do that and meet a lot of great people. Get a really big, really huge experience for me in my career. So that was fun. But now we're pivoting back to Illinois football coverage. Exciting stuff that is coming up for this. At least it's supposed to be exciting stuff that's coming up for this Illinois football team. So we'll kick it off with the 5 biggest questions that we have for this program ahead of this 2025 season. And like I mentioned, number 12 ahead of this season, that's some of the highest that they've really ever been, since 1990, I believe that is. I'd have to go check. But whenever this program has been, and I don't mean to start this off as a wet blanket, but whenever this program has been ranked that high, I believe they haven't delivered on those results. And so, like it or not, there's a lot of questions that will need to be answered throughout this season. And so it should be fun to go ahead and find out how it is that they handle all of this. And so, year to year, it's always different. But hey, let's not put that much bad energy up in the air. Let's also say, hey, this program has 18 returning starters from last year's program. So that in and of itself bodes well. But among them is not wide receiver Zachary Franklin and wide receiver Pat Bryant. And so to kick this off, the first question of the day is who will step as the wide receiver alpha that Luke Altmaier has been talking about. If you've been following Big Ten Media Days ever since then, Luke Altmaier referenced one of those wide receivers coming up as emerging as an alpha. And so, that is a significant question, because if we look back to last season, Pat Bryant, and then we were talking about this before the pod, before we started recording. If we look at that Rutgers game, if Pat Bryant doesn't exist, or if Pat Bryant is not at the right place at the right time, then this Illinois program does not win that Rutgers game. The season looks not totally different, but significantly different in terms of the end result and getting to that Citrus Bowl and all that. So to that, I ask you, Zeno, who is this wide receiver alpha who will step up? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we might have differing opinions here, but I'm a huge fan of Hudson Clement. I think that what he did at West Virginia in a very limited role, I'd call, he was the top dog there. but that West Virginia offense was never built for him to really thrive with these big passing opportunities. But I think he's in a situation where he can really succeed. He's 6'1". He's got great length, great reach. He'll be a great target for Luke Altmaier, but I do wonder if we're overlooking Justin Bowick. He was one of the earlier pickups in the transfer portal, coming in from Ball State. I believe he was at EIU before that. 6'4", huge receiver. And the one thing you'd love as a quarterback is a big target, right? You think about your big targets as wide receivers. Pat Bryant, he's got great length. Zachary Franklin, he's got a great radius. If you've got a big target as a quarterback, it just makes life so much easier. I think either of those two are liable to be what you say is like the alpha, the top dog receiver. But I'd also look to keep an eye on Colin Dixon. He's done a lot of work in the slot over the past season. But Brett's talked about moving him out wide, moving him to other positions. He could step up, maybe not as the top dog, but easily into that complementary role that we saw last year.
Yeah, so when we talk about the I guess the top dogs in the projections, right? It's really hard for us as collective media to kind of diagnose what the situation is, simply because of maybe the amount of information that we know ahead of the season, and just how much of a crapshoot it can be, and the lack of access. So, but from what we've heard, from everything that the program seems to be telling us, and including a couple other guys in that building, the guys that they've been talking about the most is Hank Beatty and Colin Dixon. Like, those two guys have been the two wide receivers that this program has been lifting up. Whether or not some of that could be potentially manifesting in some way, or inspiring or motivating these two guys to really step up, it should be that should be a question. But also, if these two guys are the guys that step up, then they're the guys. I mean, you look at during local media day, I remember having a conversation with Justin Bowick, and I asked him, I was, one of the questions that I really wanted to touch on is, hey, who exactly is the guy who emerging voice in that room, in those rooms, in the wide receiver room, or why could this X, Y, and Z person be an alpha? And I asked him, who's the voice, or who are those voices? And he immediately pointed to Hank Beatty and Colin Dixon, like, immediately. And so that struck me, because you really, when you talk to a wide receiver, you really expect them to be like, yeah, no, I can be that guy because of X, Y, and Z reason. And God knows that Justin Bowick has all the reason to say, hey, yeah, I can be that guy. I asked him, I followed up with him, why would you, or what are the reasons for you to potentially be that guy? He's like, yeah, my size is there to start. And yeah, he got in that is a wide receiver if you've ever seen one. But Hank Beatty and Colin Dixon are those two guys. And so we'll really see exactly how it is that they handle all this, I guess, hype around them, all the noise that they've been getting. I'm sure that a lot of it is also the time on task they've had with Luke Altmaier, and the amount of comfortability that they probably have with him. So that's going to be one of the things that I'm intrigued by the most.
Yeah, I mean, knowing your quarterback, right? I mean, Hank Beatty's been here forever. Colin Dixon's been here entering his second year, I believe, right? There's a lot of familiarity that comes with that. Once you know your quarterback, once you know your quarterback's tendencies, you're going to have a lot more trust in them. And part of that might just be leading by example in practices and scrimmages. But when it really gets to game time, who's lining up on the outside, right? Who's lining up in the slot? That's what really matters. And we'll see. I mean, Hank Beatty, he's gotten so much recognition for what he can do on special teams, and Brett has talked so much about how excited he is to see him finally show that on offense. He's a senior now. It will be his last year. No more of that COVID year stuff. I mean, as a fan, I think it's just one of those things where you have to wait and see, right? I mean, as you said, It's a crapshoot, and it's not like the NFL. It's not like the NBA. We don't have a preseason to see. Luke Altmaier's throwing to this guy. Luke Altmaier's throwing to that guy. The backup quarterback's in here doing this. The outside world has no idea who's going to start wide receiver one. The wide receiver has no idea who the starting tight end will be, and I think because of that, that makes this season that much more exciting.
I think it's really tough because when you look at this wide receiver room as a whole, and you look at the pieces that they have and all they invested in this particular wide receiver room, then you look at the different flavors that they have, right? You have a guy, like you said, special teams kind of star in Hank Beatty, Colin Dixon, the guy who's been there for a while, Bowick, who's a bigger guy who can do a lot. And then you have Clement, you just have a significant amount of guys in that room that you almost start to wonder will the distribute, like you almost start to think that the distribution might end up being the key for this wide receiver core, that there might not be necessarily a guy that is the alpha, that this is going to be just more, hey, distribution to more guys and have that diversity in the room and have the snaps going to, or have the throws going to different guys at any time. So it could also be that we can't ignore that possibility as well. But I think it's exciting because of the different flavors that exist. Like that's to me exciting, but it's also kind of a question mark as well, because I don't think that there's any doubt that sometimes when you need a go-to guy, you need a go-to guy. And obviously Pat Bryant was that last year. And when Pat Bryant wasn't that guy, Zachary Franklin was that guy. So really, will the same level of play, will the same level of distribution be, or excuse me, will the level of action be the same coming into this season? I think it's really intriguing to see. And honestly, you mentioned the idea that the preseason isn't really much of a, like, that doesn't exist in college football. Well, yeah, that's a good point, but I would argue that the first game is really what people would point at to think, hey, this could be a preseason adjacent, right? It does count on the calendar, but when you think about the amount of really like you look like people, like there's a lot of noise out there about talking about the spread, right, on Twitter, that this team is favored by about 45.5 points over Western Illinois. Like it's pretty much like, that's going to be the test run for this team. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great approach, right? I mean, Illinois this year has that sort of tune-up game to really ease into it. But again, this year, second game of the season, traveling to North Carolina, and Duke's no big dog in football. Duke is, I can't remember what they did significantly in football, right? I mean, John Shire just got off of winning a college basketball, or no. Duke's doing great things in college basketball, but it's not a football program, right? And if you think about it that way, this Illinois team has 3 tune-up games. You've got Western Illinois at home. You've got Duke on the road. You've got Western Michigan at home. And that game against Indiana on the road, against 20th ranked Indiana right now, will really be, I think, the time that, we learn what this Illinois football team really is. Where is this a team that could really stay in the top 12 and work their way into the college football playoff, right? And we were just talking about this before the pod, but last year, this Illinois team won a lot of close games, and a lot of that is thanks to those top dogs you mentioned. Pat Bryant won them the Rutgers game. That Northwestern game got really dicey towards the end. Purdue. I mean, the Purdue game needed a lot of late heroics. There was a 50-second drive towards the end of the game just to get it to overtime after Illinois was winning 27-3, I want to say.
It was a significant amount of points that they were winning at the half.
It was a lot to a little, right? The Nebraska game, that was another close game that Illinois pulled through thanks to individual heroics. Kansas, individual heroics. That's 5 games right there. That's a swing from 9-3 to, hey, maybe 4-8, not even making a bowl game. Yeah, 4-8, right? Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, go ahead.
yeah, and so for me, like that leads us to the next question: is can this offense be as explosive as it was last year? Right, and I know these two questions are kind of adjacent, but yeah, like you mentioned, those were two super close games. There were a couple super close games, and look, this is what I found. Right, like, Illinois last season was first among all Big Ten teams in third down conversion. That's 49.95%. And that's ahead of Penn State and Ohio State. So that's no joke. That's no joke. That's no
And
walk in the
Oregon.
park. And Oregon. Yeah, don't overlook Oregon. And so that's 14th overall in college football. But my point is that can that be replicated? I mean, you look at even the last season before that in 2023, Illinois was, I believe it was around 39% or 34%. And that's a big margin, but I gotta check that again. But 34% in terms of the third down conversion rate, like that is an insane stat that I would say only happens in the Blue Moon. But it, if Illinois can replicate even half of that, or like not literally half of that, but can get somewhere close to that statistic, then Illinois will be in good shape. But then again, we talk about the amount of work that it's going to have to take because of the amount of guys that you lost. Except, one of the big things that we shouldn't overlook, of course, is the return of the 5 stars up front. Like that is huge, right, for this program to not only have 18 starters coming back, but 5 of them be your all your offensive line be coming back. Like that is a huge get for Illinois.
No, absolutely. And just that doesn't happen anymore in football, right? As that doesn't happen with Illinois football very often, where you're returning 18 starters, let alone be 5 on the offensive line. Typically, in I guess in a vacuum, you'd think of Illinois losing starters to bigger programs, right? Losing starting running backs to different programs, whether that be because of a coaching change or because of an NIL offer that they couldn't refuse. This is a prime opportunity for Illinois returning 18 starters to really cement itself into, hey, one of the big dogs in the Big Ten football landscape.
Yeah, and it's going to be really hard to get there, but I think, and I have back to that Indiana point that you were talking about. That's going to be the first real test for this Illinois team. You can call me a wet blanket, but I have a nightmare scenario for you, and it's not necessarily what you think, that Illinois gets destroyed against that team away at Indiana. But for me, it's tough because that is the first real test of the season for both teams. In all likelihood, both teams will end up being 3-0 by the time that we get there. And so what happens if it's a close matchup for both of these teams and someone comes up on top? Does that mean that both of these teams, like, what will the voters think of that? Like, because obviously if Illinois, like the nightmare scenario, I guess it really is, if Illinois does get blown out and does lose, then that becomes kind of, that ruins the balance between all these teams, because you think of the way that the way that Indiana would end up winning, then hey, did we think that Illinois, like, does Illinois end up being not as good as everyone thought? Or, if Illinois blows them out, then is Indiana not that good? So then it becomes kind of a crapshoot, and so then it becomes really confusing. And so maybe actually the best case scenario is if Illinois wins that close game, and then that becomes the storyline, that Illinois was able to beat a really good Indiana team, and that keeps them propelled. But that's the first real test. And if that game doesn't go Illinois' way, then I fear for what is in store for this upcoming team. But do we want to kind of pivot to the third question that we have?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. What do we got on the docket?
So my thing is that one of the biggest struggles for this program ended up being the defensive line and stopping players on the run, right? Like Illinois, in its totality, was allowed 4.5 yards per rush last season, and so that's one of the that's in the latter half of the country. That's not good. And so, as much as Illinois had its wins, as much as Illinois had a significant amount of successes in the secondary, and as much as Illinois has had alums in the secondary who have gone on to do great things in the NFL, it's still a question mark. This that can Illinois stop the run? Like how? Like it's going to be significantly important when you look at the teams that they're going to be facing this season. But how will they do that, right? Because you look at the names that they had to replace and the names that are projected to be starters. You got James Thompson, Kurt Neal at the nose tackle, and Pat Farrell. Like, there's going to be a significant amount of pressure on these guys. Obviously, you have a guy in Gabe Akis and Alec Bryant who are going to be guys who contribute a lot on the edge. But that middle, man, it's going to be rough to see. It's going to be interesting to see what exactly it is that they do at that position.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just getting beat inside, right? A lot of it is Illinois going up against the likes of Penn State's Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, right? Devin Neal against Kansas. A lot of it is these running backs inside. But I also think a lot of it is that Illinois couldn't keep track of quarterbacks. As the season rolled on, there was a trend of dual threat quarterbacks just messing up the defense in the flats, whether that be as the play clock ran on, the defense just lost track of the quarterback, right? I would assume, again, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I would assume that's why that yards per rush stat is as bad as it is. But James Thompson is someone who the staff has talked really great things about. But at the end of the day, will Aaron Henry in year 3 show signs of improvement? I think that is the biggest question. I think last season, as things rolled on, as things developed, that Oregon game was really a huge wake-up call for this the defensive side, the defensive staff. I'm sorry to keep going back to basketball, but it kind of felt like the Duke game, right, where you lose in a really terrible way. Your staff is getting criticized up and down on how they're doing things wrong. And then they fixed it, right? I mean, against Michigan State, I thought it was a great defensive game. Against Rutgers, could have been better, right? But it was still, Illinois still finished with 7 more points. But whether or not this defense can mend that, can fix that, I think really relies on A, Gabe Akis, and B, how you replace Seth Coleman, because Seth Coleman was instrumental to how this defensive line succeeded last year. Seth Coleman's a big guy. I know you've talked to him. My neck hurts looking up at him when I'm talking to him. He's a big guy. He has long arms. He shuts down that dual threat. That's what he does. Seth Coleman shuts down dual threat quarterbacks because of his length, because of his speed. And really finding that Seth Coleman, and whether it be at a different position, it could be, an inside linebacker, it could be an exterior D lineman, it could be anybody. But finding someone to shut down the dual threat, I think, is crucial to really improving this defense.
No, I agree with you. I think so. It's interesting the point that you make about Aaron Henry and the amount that needs to, the stuff that needs to improve from him, and there's a lot of, I guess, question marks about where exactly he is in terms of in the I know he's well regarded by Coach Brett Bielema. I know for a fact, like, and obviously they won't say bad stuff about their coordinators publicly, but I mean, this is a guy who's been really passionate, man, and really can pump you up, and has been a delight to talk to. But results has been something that I think need to come. I do think that for as much as Illinois talks about Terrence Jameson's attention to detail and Terrence Jameson's, being this great coach, you certainly hope that he can turn a lot of these guys into those kinds of into deliver those results with these guys. Like, I'm really excited to see what these Wisconsin transfers do with this defense, right? And when you think of Brett Bielema being this guy who came from had really a lot of success with Wisconsin, it's exciting to think about what some Wisconsin transfers can do on this program. So this is something that Illinois will need to definitely address and get better at. But what really the biggest name on this board, in terms of the pressures and all that, is Gabe Akis, and I'm super excited to see what exactly this team does with him him here another year, because by all accounts, this is probably a guy in the pre-NIL era who does not come back. I mean, Gabe Akis is a guy who, by all accounts, should have gone to the NFL, but because of NIL, because of the magic that of money, Illinois has him for another year, and it should be exciting to all Illinois fans to have a guy who is an NFL prospect come back for another year. And so we'll see exactly how he handles the moniker of being a captain, right? The moniker of being a captain, right? Like, that's also a huge thing for this guy. Not the moniker of being a captain,
Right.
added to that captain's list. It's exciting to think about what he can do for another year in development in that defense, and maybe even the opportunities that he'll have because of simply being the clear-cut guy in that defensive line. So to be that, obviously there's a lot of question marks around that side of the defense, but he's a surefire guy who you're going to be able to count on day in and day out.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, he should not be here. He does not belong here. He should be playing a preseason NFL game somewhere, but now he's an ESPN preseason All-American, Athlon preseason All-America third team. He's on several watch lists. He's the number 20 overall player in college football, according to CBS.com, right? Number 20 overall. That's not in the Big Ten. That's not in the Big Ten West. That's in the Big Ten. For all intents and purposes, Gabe Akis is an NFL player who is playing another year of college football. And for one thing, that means that, he will be he'll be circled 3 times over by a red pen for every scouting report that any Illinois opponent has going into this season. But it also means that there's a lot of expectation on his own shoulders. How Gabe Akis handles those expectations, I think, will be paramount to Illinois' defense and its success. But I don't see any reason why he wouldn't, have a great year, right?
You certainly hope so, right? And you think about what could happen when you come NFL draft and where he could end up. It's exciting to think about in terms of that and the continued success of this program, and to have a guy in that defensive line or in terms of being a pressure guy, an edge guy to go into the NFL, be a lucrative draft pick. It's exciting stuff, and so we'll see exactly how Gabe Akis ends up doing, but we'll see. We'll see. That's only stuff that we can end up seeing when the game time comes. Running back. Should we talk about the running back position and exactly how it is that Illinois will handle that? Because obviously you have those two guys in Aiden Lawfrey. You also have Khalil Valentine, but you have Aiden Lawfrey at the top of that list, and Caden Fagan, who's coming back from injury. And it's really intriguing to me, right? I question, and half of this is because I simply wasn't covering the team when Caden Fagan had his really good season. But I question, how will Caden Fagan return when he's been through 2 pretty significant injuries? And you also, when we talk about the running back room in its totality, you also no longer count on the services of Josh McCray, who was an instrument, ended up throughout the latter half of last season, ended up being an instrumental part of that running game and the offense in general when it came to this Illinois offense. And so you think about, hey, how is this gonna end up? How is this gonna pan out? It's interesting, right? Because the two top clear guys are Caden Fagan and Aiden Lawfrey. I believe those two guys are also from the Quad Cities, right? So Illinois kids, or Central Illinois, also Caden Fagan, Central Illinois, right? Anyways, besides the point.
Fagan's from California, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Essentially,
I don't know where I got that.
Aiden Lawfrey from. No, he's from
yeah,
Illinois.
Aiden Lawfrey.
I'm tripping. No, Caden Fagan's from Atwood, Illinois.
Yes. Khalil Ballantyne is from California.
Khalil Ballantyne is from California.
Yes.
Yeah. When we talk about this running back room, I think, oh man, I'm trying to put this into words. You had one running back, that sort of smaller back, that prototypical smaller, quicker receiving back in Aiden Lawfrey. You had that strong, tough-nosed, old school running back in Josh McCray, who could maybe not explode for 30, but get 6 in a 3rd and 4, right? And then you had Caden Fagan, who I felt was the blend between both. He could block for you, he could run for you, he's liable to go off for a lot, right? He ran again, this is against Eastern Illinois, but he ran for 108 yards against Eastern Illinois. And how these duties are, I guess, divvied up will sort of tell you what this offense will be. Because towards the end of last year, anytime that Aiden Lawfrey was in the backfield alongside Luke Altmaier, it kind of told you, oh, this won't be a run inside, right? Anytime it was Khalil Valentine in the backfield, this isn't going to be a run inside. If it was Josh McCray, probably an inside, probably a zone read, right? If it was Caden Fagan, it was liable to be anything. You know, he could block for Luke Altmaier. He could rush on the outside. He could rush inside. But this year, you have Caden Fagan as that big guy who could maybe do it all. He's tall. He's huge. I think Brett last week talked about how the one thing that he told all his staff to do with Caden Fagan was to not change him to any other position, to keep him as a running back for as long as he wanted to play running back. And just how this running back room will be rotated will be super interesting to see, right? Because last year you sort of had the running back by committee, I think is what we called it. It was kind of the point guard by committee approach that Illinois basketball took. But last year, Illinois football had the running back by committee, where some games it'd be Aiden, right? Against Northwestern, it was Aiden Lawfrey. Against South Carolina in the bowl game, it was Josh McCray, right? And day by day, I do think it will change. But with this being, I believe, his last season in college football, Caden Fagan will be the big guy. And it's a matter of how is he complemented? How does the rest of the room supplement his efforts?
Yeah, you certainly hope that this is going to be a guy who ends up being healthy for the season, because those, like it or not, those past 2 seasons are indicators of me maybe being prone to injury. I know it's tough, but he seems, by all accounts, to handle it well throughout the past 2 seasons, because it really seems like nothing changed for him. Like when you talk to the guy, it's the same thing he was saying last year, pretty much, of having a good support system and being able to have that faith that he can come back and be the guy and be that particular, I guess, to be solid running back. But it's interesting because when you talk to this room, everybody is content with sharing carries, and so that's interesting. I feel like you don't really get that a lot of the times, like everywhere. But yeah, I mean, certainly you look at his freshman, you look at a couple of the stats that he had in the past, and it's you hope that this is a guy who, like I said, can stay healthy, and if he can, then that'll be significant for this program, because when he's on, and so hopefully that'll be something that can help this offense, because if one of them goes down, it's going to be really rough, especially when you don't have that fourth guy. And obviously, I don't mean to discount the guys behind them, but the reality situation is that the three headline guys is Caden Fagan, uh, Aiden Lawfrey, and Khalil Ballantyne. And Khalil Ballantyne is probably towards the little, probably third guy there, but you really hope to see results from him as well. It'll be certainly interesting to see. Another thing I'm intrigued by, and it's something that it's not necessarily a question, but the addition of Cole Rusk at the tight end position, of having that guy be available, be healthy, and obviously it's going to be the first time that he steps on a Big Ten field or plays against Big Ten opponents or plays in the Big Ten. But I think it's a significant addition to have two tight ends you can play with. It is significant for this offense, for this team, and could give more variety to this offense.
We were both there last year when we learned that Cole Rusk tore his, I believe it was an ACL injury. And we were both in the building when that news broke that he tore his ACL and Illinois will be without tight end one entering the season. And the staff was devastated. The players were devastated because there was a lot of expectation around this Murray State transfer tight end and what he could do for Illinois. And as a result of that, in the wake of him suffering a severe injury, what happened? Tanner Arkin stepped up, right? Tanner Arkin stepped up, was promptly voted a team captain, which I found super interesting. It's a very interesting storyline to follow, is Tanner Arkin's growth throughout the year. He talked to us last year about how Cole Rusk helped him through a lot of that sort of the mental or emotional side of being a tight end, but also that, those are big shoes to fill, right? Cole Rusk being injured gave Tanner Arkin some big shoes to fill. But now with them both being here, with Tanner Arkin having played a season of Big Ten football, with Cole Rusk now preparing to play his first season of Big Ten football, you might see Cole Rusk leaning on Tanner Arkin for advice and a little bit of guidance, right? But it is interesting. Brett talked to us about how Cole and Tanner both being healthy gives this Illinois offense the opportunity to play with 12 men, meaning you can use both tight ends. One maybe with the idea of blocking, one maybe with the idea of receiving, maybe both blocking, maybe both receiving, right? It gives Luke Altmaier a lot of options. It gives the Illinois backfield a lot of options. And it can only bring good, right? The more you have, the more competition there is. And what is it about pressure? Building diamonds, right? Something like that. The tight end room is really exciting. I think it's the room where there is the least amount of questions, and it's just wondering what they can do at this rate.
That's a super interesting point, because I honestly, I think that if Illinois can, okay, so when I think of Illinois' offense in 2024, I think of tempo offense, I think of quick wide receiver routes and snap and go, pretty much. And to think about what Illinois could do when you have room to have those two tight ends on the field running 12 personnel, maybe not even both of them, but with the other guys in the depth, David Stoffel is in there as well. But when you look at it in its totality, I think that it's so interesting that Illinois, Barry Lunny, Luke Altmaier will be afforded more opportunities to do different things in this Illinois offense. It'll be interesting because largely what we saw last season was Illinois is really good at high tempo offense, and the two guys that were always there, we already mentioned them. But I think this offense is due for a significant amount of change. I think it won't be the same thing we saw last season. And I think that also opens up a little questions in terms of there's no questions in terms of leadership for Luke Altmaier. There's no questions in terms of bona fides for Luke Altmaier. But I'm curious to see the way that he plays in 2025, because it'll be interesting because of of the amount of options that you now have, the amount of weapons that you have that aren't necessarily the most proven guys. And so whether that be running backs, whether that be tight ends, Tanner Arkin is the proven guy in that room. And you could make an argument that Colin Dixon has the most, Colin Dixon has the most, the most, I guess, the biggest relationship with Luke Altmaier, as well as Cole Rusk having that relationship with Luke Altmaier. But it'll be interesting to see how Luke Altmaier handles all this. And I'm also interested to see how Luke Altmaier and I'm sure he'll do it well. I'm sure he'll do it well because it's the way that he's been through and through. The steady guy who's always kind of really even killed is the word for him. Like when I think of Luke Altmaier, I think of even killed. But it'll be super interesting to see how, in which way that he chooses to distribute the ball and how Barry Lunny will decide to go about it. Because last season, I thought that there were a lot of times where, and obviously you can't do it all the time, do tempo offense, but sometimes I was like, tempo offense been going pretty well. And so obviously you have to diversify a little bit, but it's something that I thought about a lot last season and something that I think Illinois fans will be curious to see how it pans out. But yeah, go ahead.
On the offense, right? I mean, we both know that Brett is a big clock management guy, a big guy on dominating possession of the ball, right? Part of that tempo offense, part of that reluctance to use the tempo offense in some situations might just be that, right? Against a team like Oregon, like Penn State last year, you might need more of the ball to prevent Penn State from scoring, right? Just to prevent Singletary from going off for 100 yards, just to prevent Dylan Gabriel from passing for 300, 200, right? I think in those situations, it works, right? It works to make a game closer when you just can't have your opponents with the ball. But in games against Purdue, when you have a 24, 27-point lead, you have a 24-point lead, and your opponent hasn't really looked good, there's nothing wrong with keeping that tempo up, making that a 5-6 score game, right? But I think that lesson has been learned, I'd like to say. I think that this year Barry Lunny will really look to keep that offense more diverse, keep that offense a lot faster, because we know that's what he likes to do. And maybe he didn't have the personnel to do it last year, but it was a really busy season in the transfer portal, and maybe, just maybe, this season will be different.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly see. I'm excited to cover it all. I'm excited to be doing this podcast, continuing that, covering the games, covering media availabilities. It should be a fun season of coverage, so stay along with us as we continue to do so throughout this season. And now, I forgot to mention, we're available on Apple Podcast. I almost forgot Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube now as well. So stay along with us as we chronicle the 2025 season for the Illini. Just a quick thing though, Zeno, to cap this off. All right, what are your realistic expectations for this Illini team? Like realistic expectations. If you don't want to do realistic, whatever strikes your fancy. But what are your realistic expectations? Let's not do predictions just yet. But what are you kind of looking at when it comes to this program in 2025?
I like to stay pessimistic, right? I didn't think Illinois was going to go to a big bowl game last year, so I'll stay pessimistic. I'll stay pessimistic and say Illinois has great games against teams that are similar to Illinois and worse than Illinois, but Illinois falls flat against teams like Ohio State. I don't think that's crazy to say.
Listen, I tend to call myself a wet blanket some of the times, but man, Zeno, you're being a wet blanket right now. You're being no fun, guys. Come on. Illinois has been one of those programs that's been hyped up so much nationally that you've gotten so much attention. You've gotten national reporters coming into the building and chronicling what is the offseason that's supposed to crown Illinois as one of the big dogs in college football. One of the premier contenders year in year out in the new college football playoff. And let's not talk about those new floated ideas of yet another expanded college football playoff. But you look at Illinois' schedule, and I know it's so, and talked about this before, that you can't really make that many predictions when it comes to the schedule because of how much of a crapshoot it can be. But you look at the momentum that Illinois as a program has had, not just nationally, but also the amount of starters that they have back, the kind of coach that they have, the quarterback that they have right now, the staff that they built, and the guys that they have in the building, and the vibes all around in that locker room. I know it's preseason, but the vibes are up. Keep those vibes up. If Illinois can win that Indiana game, better yet, if they can blow out Indiana in the hostile territory, then I think Illinois can be that premier college football contender. Like, I think Illinois certainly has that opportunity, and certainly can do it. They have the credentials, they have the guys in the building. It's just a matter of whether or not they can win by the margins. And I think if Illinois did it last season with the same staff, maybe not those two receivers that are in the building, but if Illinois can muster momentum, if Illinois can identify key contributors early and can do it efficiently, then Illinois should be in store for a great season. And if not, then you'll catch me scrutinizing this team throughout the season. So we'll see. We'll see what it ends up looking like.
I'd like to revisit my expectation. I think Illinois has a good season, right?
All right.
But there will be an unexpected and disappointing loss. That's my expectation.
All right. Well, no one likes a flip-flopper, Zeno, but all right, man. Well, this has certainly been a lot of fun. So I look forward to doing this, continue to do this with you, Zeno, throughout the course of the season. It should be fun. Maybe even have you host one of these and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens in the future. But for now, it's thank you from me, Saeed Bravo, and Zeno Joe. We'll catch you on the next one. Subscribe, rate, review if you so please, and peace.
Thank you.
All right, great stuff, Zeno. Let me stop recording. There we go.